Good afternoon, everyone. We did the analysis of the lease a battery concept, where we more or less also discussed the basics of the better place concept. What was some things we have noted, and I have the problem that my notes are never readable afterwards, is that Better Place basically states that they are not competing with other types of EV solutions, but they are competing with oil. So for them, basically in their marketing, it's a competition against oil and fossil fuel-based vehicles, and not per se against other EV solutions. One other topic is consumers will have to make the choice what business model they will go for, or buy a car with a fixed battery in it, or to go buy the car and hire lease a battery, or use a Better Place model where you actually buy kilometers on a monthly fee. So there a trade-off has to be made in will I have to make a lot of trips, extending the range of my vehicle? Will I be more convenient with a vehicle that I can swap the battery off when it's convenient for me, etc. What was very interesting that this morning we placed the fact that battery prices will drop in the future, we placed it as a threat on our scheme, while during the discussions, when we were also joined by Ron, this afternoon, we basically had to move it towards the opportunity part. Because in the eyes of the company, if prices drop, it's only stimulating them to make better use of batteries and to lower their risks also. Let's see here. Yeah, of course, also nice to know it's not really in the core of what we discussed, but Better Place for now, because this morning we discussed, okay, balancing will be very hard to achieve with only EV batteries of the grid. That for now, initially balancing will be done very low, and that only after first life of batteries in EVs, when the batteries are worn out a little bit more, that hardcore balancing can be done at that stage, and that also the people of Better Place can make a better profit with it at that stage. What I noted also this afternoon is that the best range will be, because we are always talking, but range must be extended, that the range will be far below 500 kilometers probably, what is an optimum for EVs, because of course people are making the link between, okay, but now I have my car which has 800 or 1000 kilometers range, but it's not every day that you go to the petrol station and fill it up to have that range of 1000 kilometers. This morning I could have taken my other car where only the range was also perhaps 200 kilometers for now, with a battery of between 100 and 500 kilometers that every day is charged. You will have also no problems of range. A threat or a difficulty encountered by EVs in general, possibly in the future and already now also, is the different country regulations. Also for installing, for example, charging infrastructure at home, that you are encountered with problems that you can't have 2 meters, or problems how we will measure the amount of electricity consumed for your charging of your car. Then for the Better Place model, a strength was very much the low initial price. so that you can buy the car without initially having to buy the, for the moment, still expensive battery. It was also an idea that in the future many more business models should come into the market where people could make their choice, not A or B, what we were discussing this morning, but there might be crossovers, and there might be business models that can form competitions for the ones that are available now or will become available soon. And the fact that you will not be the owner of the battery might also be very interesting or attract people who are more risk averse because they are not an owner of the component of the car which is thought of to be the most that it can be most harmful. And then one thing what was brought up but we were able to answer is, what in case of bankruptcy of the firm that was the owner of the batteries? So I wanted to conclude with that one. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And now we move to a completely different model that was more for the blue people, and that is no car ownership anymore, but full car sharing. So I invite Susan from the Solvay Brussels School to summarize about that discussion. I'm very interested because I was not part of the group at all. And has anybody seen Leven? Oh no, it's down there, okay.
Thank you. Okay, we had quite a lively discussion in both the first session and the second around car sharing. And what we ended up focusing on ultimately in terms of the weaknesses were two themes. And the first one was, will this concept actually meet my needs? And when we dug into the details, it was really around things like, I'm not a smoker, and I really don't want to be sharing a car with someone that just smoked in it. Or, I'm not really a dog person, and I sat down in the car, started to drive, and I have my business suit on, I'm going to a meeting, and I have dog fur all over me because somebody's, chihuahua was sitting in the seat next to them. So, in terms of meeting particular needs, that was sort of the initial description of that concern. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later, because in the course of the discussion, we dug a little deeper, and there's something beyond the smoking and the dogs that actually is this barrier to entry in terms of car sharing. But the second concern was around availability and accessibility. And we defined that as, I don't live in the heart of Brussels, but I really do want to, be part of this car sharing. But how am I going to get from my suburban location into a spot where there is a pickup point? Because I want to be a part of this, but the distance is really a problem for me. The other issue was, I do live in Brussels, and when I get to the pickup point, there aren't enough cars. Uh-oh, what am I going to do? So we talked a bit about this concept that now is starting to roll out to different global cities, with the bicycles. So we're getting rid of the parking spaces, and now you've got, all these bicycles. But did you ever notice that in certain parts of the city there are a lot of bikes all the time, and in others, not a one? Okay, so it's this accessibility and availability that is really weighing heavy, in people's minds. So we jumped right into problem solving, and the first thing that we talked about was in the concern around meeting my needs, and the group immediately came up with a question. That's always great, you want a solution, but it's easier to ask the big questions. So who is responsible for meeting, these particular needs, of the user, of the consumer? And the group decided it's the car manufacturer's responsibility. So all these people that we know, collaborate across their organizational boundaries so well and have no hidden agendas will be able to work together to solve for this. And I think we couldn't really break through in our thinking much beyond that, so we immediately switched to solving for the second issue, and we were much more prolific. So how do you make car sharing accessible and available? And the group went on a certain path and said we need to identify what the target markets are that we need to go after in order to solve that problem. And the first is logical: focus on fleet cars. Right? So you have a large uptake, it's guaranteed. We had a colleague presenting earlier who helped us understand that yes, I mean you can actually affect uptake and behavioral change if you do it in the right situation. So fleet cars could certainly reduce the perceived fear of a lack of availability and accessibility. The second solution was focus on densely populated areas. So, we would like to be able to make this something that is available to everyone, but we're going to start to make sure, like we're piloting it in a sense. Let's start in the densely populated areas where we know that we've got people who will have access to it, they don't have to travel long distances, and they don't have an excuse or a barrier to get to a pickup point. That had a sub-solution set to it, which is intermodality between the trains, the buses, and the metro to be near pickup points. So it became really clear that in addition to reducing the distance barrier, you need to make sure if I can walk out of my house and it's going to take me at least 15 minutes, and I may walk a bit, I may jump on the tram and then get to the pickup point. If it takes me 15 minutes from my house to get my shared car, you better believe I want to be able to run my errands for at least 45 minutes to make up for the 15 that I've already invested. So planning, right, and urban infrastructure is a very key point to that second solution, which is if you're going to focus on the densely populated areas, you need to co-opt the urban planners. And the third solution for availability was launch with schools. And we had, a very passionate parent, in our group who explained that the amount of traffic on the roads in the mornings to drop the kids off and to pick them up at the end of the day causes her an hour every single day out of her life. So she would be one of the first ones to sign up, and she's quite sure that other parents would as well. And I think the concept of, whether it's fleet cars or having car sharing, with a school community makes sense because number one, predictable, right? You know when school starts, you know when it ends, and it's a captive audience, right? You know this is going to take place, you know when the school holidays are scheduled, etc. So those were the initial brainstorm solutions for availability. I will tell you that they jumped back to the first question, or the first problem, which is how do you meet my needs? And we put an elephant on the table, and that was nobody's talking about status. Do I really, really want to be jumping in a car that somebody else drove, and it's not really the brand, it's not really the look, the feel, that I feel goes with me. So when we really got honest and started talking about that, we realized that part of the solution for meet my needs, right? Because somebody isn't going to be embarrassed to say, I would jump on it, but don't want to be seen driving in those models, is to encourage the car manufacturers to do what many of them are doing already, and that is it doesn't have to be cute and green and looking like you have to be 20-something to be inside of it. So for those of us that are kind of leaning into 50, and have the disposable income, it's important to understand that there is a market that would probably transition over to some of these concepts, in particular car sharing, if we just acknowledge some of what drives us. The group was also very cultural and national in its thinking, and said it depends on where in the world we are, and really think through what would be the most acceptable where the car sharing is taking place. Okay. And the final thing, which was a little bit of blue sky, is branding. So just the way, we're all branded right now. thanks to Solvay Brussels School of Economics and Management. But, you know, take a look at your clothing, look at your labels. So in terms of, you know, meeting particular needs as they relate to the cost, if we consider allowing, you know, these cars to be branded, you know, with, who knows, somebody said, well, you know, Chanel will certainly, you know, slap their double C's somewhere, you know, on an EV. It could be an interesting concept to reduce the cost of ownership or usage if you engage in a little bit of commercialism and already open your mind to a concept that we're all very well acquainted with. And think about the cars we all drive right now, right? It just screams the brand that we're driving, so why not actually invite more of that so that you lower the barrier of entry around affordability in terms of finances. So thank you to the group. It was a very good discussion, very heated. Appreciate it. Yes. Good thing I didn't do it.
Okay, now thanks to Susan. And now I wanted to ask Lieven, that had the green group. The green group is the affluent and progressive, and they were discussing the issue of city logistics and how should fundamentally shopping move around in the city.
As you can see, it was a very productive session. I had tons of post-its and things, so thanks to the group for that. So, as Sergio was explaining, our group was about electric vehicles and city distribution. And we also did the SWOT. So, of course, what as a strength came out was, I mean, what was coming back throughout the full discussion was that